I'm Jolene, and I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. Saying those words will never get easier. You are putting the worst thing that ever happened to you out.
Protecting the evidence like you protect the kids is really acknowledging that this is a part of the child's humanity.
And when children share the worst, they deserve the best protection. Vitanix is more than cloud storage or software. We're security for the most sacred trust you've been given.
Vitanix was built from the ground up for child advocacy centers specifically to meet the needs of those child advocacy centers, and was informed by conversations not only with individual centers across the country, but also with partners from the Department of Justice, the FBI, the National Children's Alliance, and leading philanthropists. The kind of security that we use is the same kind of security that protects the Department of Defense. So when we talk about Vitanix, we talk about being in the same company as things that protect us from nuclear armament.
Unlike DVDs and videotapes that can be damaged, hard to play back, or easily lost, or consumer-grade online storage services that are not secure, Vitanix is so much more than just storage. With Vitanix, you can simply and securely share and manage access to interviews in real time online, create a digital chain of evidence, and ensure, in a way never possible before, that forensic interviews are protected.
It's personal for us. We know the stakes are high for these child testimonies.
Vitanix helps you accelerate justice and healing with instant access and simple coordination. If that's working with team members across the office or agencies from across the country. It's easy to use and easy to learn, with the ability to collaborate, share, and even add attachments.
With Vitanix, the benefit is we can easily share an interview with a defense attorney, with a prosecutor, and they can prepare for their cases, which really has the ability to continue that access to justice for children on those cases.
It is really state-of-the-art technology that children in this field and in our work deserve. They deserve the best.
We know it isn't about putting fancy bells and whistles on something, so it's the most high-tech. It's about making it work and making it work well for the users who need it to advance the cases on behalf of these children.
This kind of technology where you are trying to preserve critical information, there are no systems like this that really make sure that this is treated like evidence and that that story is preserved and protected so that only the people that need to have access to it get access to it.
The value of protecting that moment, their voice, those memories, you can't put a price tag on that because something priceless was taken from them.
Vitanix is here to protect your work. Your calling to be there when children call out, because we protect the evidence like you protect the child.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Micah Yost. I am so excited to be here with you today on another live stream. We've got another exciting guest with us today that I'll bring in just momentarily, and we're going to have some great conversation today. If you are joining us on the stream on Vimeo, or if you're joining us on the stream through Eventbrite, look for that chat. That chat box is right there. And we would love for you to toss in there your name, where you're from. That's always fun to kind of know where people are joining from. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Heather, who are joining us today. Thanks for tossing that in there. And then, of course, questions. Let us know today. What are your questions? What can Greg answer for you today? We would love to get that information to you. So we will keep a very close eye on the chat. And let us know what your questions are, and we would love to answer that. We'll also be tossing some links in there along the way today so you can get some more information. So that's enough housekeeping from me. Again, my name is Micah Yost. I'm with Vitanix, but let's bring in our guest of honor, the guest of the hour, the man of the hour, Mr. Greg Fleck. Greg, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's so awesome to have you.
My pleasure, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about something I'm real passionate about.
Yeah, this is so fun. So I am located in Omaha, Nebraska, central United States. It's spring here. We've kind of got a classic spring day today. It's like kind of cloudy and a little rainy, a little cool up here. You are in let's see, Alabama. Is that right?
We are headquartered in Alabama. I'm with the National Children's Advocacy Center and the Southern Regional CAC, but I'm coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, and I got to say it's about 70 degrees and sunny here today, so not too bad.
Not too bad, not too bad. Okay, yeah, I would take that. I might have to come down your way here pretty soon. So, so Greg, for I think most people are probably familiar with Southern Regional and generally with kind of this idea of the regional CACs. But could you just kind of give us an overview really quick of how that works? You know, how your center particularly works, and kind of generally how this idea of the regional centers works?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we're one of 4 regional children's advocacy centers, and we are tasked with providing training, technical assistance, support, whatever we can to really help CACs and multi MDTs to provide whatever resources are available to us that we can pass along to them. Things, like team facilitator training, support around multidisciplinary teams. We support chapters, things like that that really help those of you out there doing the work on the ground do it as best you can.
Now, you do quite a bit of training, don't you? I mean, that's kind of one of your key roles here. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so a lot of the training that I do and my colleagues, multidisciplinary teams, working with team facilitators. So we are, doing a lot of that training. And lately, given the pandemic, we're doing a lot of webinars and a lot of web-based training. So we're out there virtually connecting with folks and really delivering whatever knowledge and resources we can to help the field.
So this is a really fun photo I found. This is Healing Hearts CAC, I think 2019. I believe that's you over on the far side there of this photo, but I thought this was kind of one fun example of maybe some of the work that you get to do.
That is me. And interestingly enough, I have trained in a lot of places. This was the first time I trained in a Harley Davidson dealership. They were kind enough to offer us some free space. So we were at a Harley dealership. It was fantastic.
Hey, that's pretty fun, man. There could be a lot worse places to do training than a Harley dealership.
Yeah.
Uh, so, Greg, we've talked about the work that you do before. I've had the opportunity to talk a little bit about that with you, and it's fun to see photos like that of the groups that you get to work with. I was kind of curious, like, why is this work important to you? What is it for you that has made you passionate about this work, or why is it that you do what you do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I started out in a different space. I started out as a therapist, and because I was curious about how people thought, how people process stuff. And as I got into the CAC world, I started to become really interested in what I would call human systems, how individuals came together, how they collaborated. And this model, as anybody who's listening knows, really requires people to interact well, to function well together. And so just being able to kind of take that systems level look at a process like this was fascinating to me. And as I started to work with teams and see some of them function really well and others function not so well, I got really curious about what the differences was. What was in that secret recipe that helped the teams that were successful function really well, and how could we bring that to more and more teams?
Yeah, it's cool. So let's get into that for a minute. This idea of MDTs, multidisciplinary teams. I had mentioned to you when we were talking earlier, a lot of times I see this role defined as an MDT coordinator. And one of the things that you had said is you really prefer the term MDT facilitator as opposed to a coordinator. And I was wondering if you could just kind of jump off for a minute and talk a little bit why you like that idea of a facilitator a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. So I love this word facilitator. The root of it actually means, it comes from the Latin word easy. And a facilitator's job is to make a process easier. And so, whereas a coordinator, they might be there doing, what could be considered air traffic control, which is a huge, important part of multidisciplinary teams, making sure everybody's connected and working, in the right way with each other. I like this facilitator role as somebody whose focus is on strengthening and sustaining a team and helping them engage in collaborative processes that really take the best that everybody has to offer and bring it together to create unique and innovative, effective pathways for kids towards that healing, justice, safety goals that we're looking for.
That's really cool. I love that. When you told me that, that really helped me kind of flip my mind a little bit about what this role is, what and the potential of it. Um, I had in my experience speaking with the child advocacy centers, I've seen this role of a MDT facilitator sometimes be pretty informal. Someone just kind of lands on their plate, no matter what their job title is. All the way to some centers that have a very formal person in this particular job. Has that been your experience? And how are you seeing this role kind of get defined at different centers?
Yeah, it's really interesting how this role has been evolving. I would say over the course of the last several years. As you mentioned, Micah, in many places it's somebody who is just given another hat, so to speak, victim advocate or a forensic interviewer. We need somebody to coordinate the team, maybe run the team case review meetings, and so it's kind of been an afterthought, might be too strong of a word, but done without as much intention as we hope. And nowadays we're seeing much more deliberate, intentional processes around this role. So identifying people who have a knack for facilitation, for working with a team, finding individuals on the team who have really good relationships and are able to build and cultivate those relationships. So we're seeing this role really elevate and kind of come into its own over the course of the last few years, which we're really excited about.
Yeah, that's super cool. It seems, again, just in my kind of limited experience looking across the industry, it's popping up more and more, a lot more conversation about it. So let's say you've got a center who is thinking about making this a more official position, if you will, or even just kind of realizing, hey, we kind of do this, but we kind of want to make this more of an official thing. What types of advice might you give them in just kind of starting to pull this role together and maybe starting to take a little bit more of a leadership position, if you will, a facilitator position, with their multidisciplinary teams? Kind of what do those first steps look like?
Yeah, I think the first step for me would be to really have an honest conversation internally. And maybe that's, between a supervisor and a potential facilitator, especially within maybe a senior leadership on the MDT, and say, what would we look for? What's going to be valuable to us to help us in our process? And then, really starting to identify, we need someone who's going to help us to navigate the communication challenges, the challenges with sharing information or collaboration, helping to really address those things that nobody else really has on their plate. So that would be a good first step, is to figure out what we're looking for, what we need. I think a second step would really be around finding some training for this individual who's going to step into this role, really identifying what this role is all about, and building some basic skills that will be helpful to anybody as they move into this position.
And on that note, if people were looking for training, I believe you actually have a few opportunities for that, don't you? Doesn't you and your center offer some training specifically on this front?
We do. All of the regionals in some capacity offer training. In the southern region, we have a web-based kind of introductory training called Cultivating the Role of Team Facilitator. really gives people an entry-level exposure to what the role is all about, some kind of nuts and bolts, some basic skills that facilitators will want to employ and take advantage of. And that's a self-paced webinar training that they can find on our website, srcac.org, and use our virtual learning platform to take advantage of that. And then, once people have that under their belt, we have a little bit more of an in-depth training called Team Facilitator 2.0.
Cool.
And that is a multi-part, long-term 4 or 5 month process where we bring a cohort of team facilitators together to really learn about this position and do some in-depth training about the skills that they will find valuable in bringing that team together and supporting that team.
We're all here doing what we do, ultimately, I think to accelerate this healing, this justice, this, for these kids. And I'm curious how you would attach this particular role of MDT Facilitator to those outcomes. What is it that you're seeing in this role that ultimately helps CACs be more effective at what they're trying to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one that I just explored with some colleagues yesterday, as a matter of fact. Where I kind of go to is just having a facilitator is not going to overnight change the outcomes that you can provide to kids and families. What it is going to do is over time build a team's capacity to work effectively together, right? So enhanced collaboration, better opportunities for a team coming together to share their expertise, to really create better processes for that team functioning. And that in turn will really over time yield better outcomes for kids and families. And one way to think about that is if you've got a team that's not collaborating, not functioning effectively, maybe somebody's not bringing their best information, or they're not able to ask questions that would maybe create a unique idea or a possibility for a child. When a team is really working well together, everybody's bringing their best stuff to the table. And there's a process for figuring out what of that we're going to be able to put into a process, a solution, a pathway for a child. And so that's really where I see that facilitator's role, supporting those processes that in the end help those kids and families.
That's so good. I'm just looking at the chat here. Alicia, Heather, Cindy, Buffy, Jessica, Michelle, welcome to all of you. Thanks for jumping in there. If you have questions for Greg, please toss them in, and I'll make sure I get them up here. Greg, one specific question that I got earlier from someone when I was talking to them about this role. They were newer in this role of coordinator, like a few months in, and she was telling me it's a little can be a little overwhelming her first few meetings. She's pulling together a lot of professionals across a lot of industries. Many of them were, older than her, more experienced than her, perhaps, and she said, she loved her role, but it was a bit overwhelming at times. What advice would you maybe give to, people newer to this role as they're kind of just trying to get this thing going, and they're going into their first meeting going, yikes, everybody's looking at me to lead this thing. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, talk about getting thrown into the deep end in some of these roles. And then laid on top of that, doing it in a pandemic where you've not got the capacity to build those relationships. I really feel for facilitators out there who experience this. I would say the first thing that any new facilitator needs to do is give themselves a lot of grace. These teams, they take a lot of work, and you're not going to fix them overnight, right? You're not going to walk into a meeting, walk into a new team and have it, operating on all cylinders in a matter of days, weeks, or even months. They take a while. So I would share that this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I would also share that the first thing a good team facilitator could do or needs to do is to really zoom out. We call it getting off the dance floor and getting up on the balcony. It's a phrase from a wonderful author named Ron Heifetz that we really like. And what he suggests is that you maybe zoom out, you get up on the balcony and you look for the patterns. You really look to see what's happening on these teams. Because if you're down there at the dance floor, you're going 100 miles an hour, you're not going to see the forest for the trees. You're really not going to be able to take the wide perspective about what's going to be helpful for these teams. And so zoom out and then really tune into listening. Start listening to what that team needs, to what's really, where the challenges really are. All things we would recommend to new facilitators.
So good. One one other thing that I was just reading a couple questions in the chat. One other question that I had gotten the other day was kind of on the terms of onboarding new MDT members. So this person had been in this role for about 2 years, felt like they had a pretty good handle on the team, on doing things, and then all of a sudden a member leaves, you got a new key member in, and it just kind of throws wrinkles and everything. What advice could we give to MDT coordinators as they're kind of tackling that piece of the role, bringing on new people to the team and making that all mesh?
Yeah, I think a really good structured onboarding process is going to be helpful for not only the team, but that new person coming onto the team. And an onboarding process needs to be more than just a binder that says, here's our team protocols, here's kind of how we operate, show up at the meeting on Thursdays and you'll be fine. It really does need to be an engaged process. So we've heard that one of the most effective things some teams are doing is creating a shadowing experience where a new person on the team is getting the opportunity to see what the other roles and disciplines are doing in their day-to-day stuff. I think it's not just about the content of what's happening on the team, but also some of the norms. What are the customs? What are the rules of the team? We oftentimes don't know what a team rule is until we break him. And then we get a slap on the wrist or something bad happens and we learn the hard way. So in integrating new folks onto the teams in ways that are meaningful, intentional, and really respectful of what they have to offer and inviting them to bring that is going to be really effective. So a lot of that relationship building, that kind of really getting to know folks, which is tough because it takes a long time to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I was just, Crystal was just commenting here in the chat about sometimes the politics that can come up around teams, right? Different peoples, as you mentioned, the norms, the ways of doing things. Crystal's commenting, I'm just here to get things done for the kids. How do you navigate that as a coordinator? How do you balance that as a team leader, the politics and the norms that you're trying to work around versus like, I just want to get stuff done for the kids. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. The first step is actually naming it and normalizing it. I think we spend very little time actually talking about what makes these teams challenging to operate and giving ourselves some almost a reality check. We've got law enforcement, child protective services, prosecutors, doctors. I mean, multiple disciplines who have their own just training, experience, ways of doing things, even cultures. Like the culture of law enforcement is a lot different from the culture of child protective services. And if we don't allow or acknowledge that they're just not going to seamlessly come together and mesh beautifully, like we're setting ourselves up for some real challenges there. So I think just being realistic about the fact that we've got to iron some of this stuff out. We've got to come up with good ways and systems of doing this and have conversations that might be uncomfortable, but they'll move us through to get to those better places. Sometimes we call it, naming the fact that there's an elephant in the room and just having those tough conversations. It's got to happen.
Yeah. Man, I love that idea. Just call it out, just say it. Hey, look, we're all different. We come from different backgrounds, different cultures. So let's just all acknowledge that and put it on the table, instead of just dancing around stuff. I always like to joke that, I start sweating whenever any type of confrontation comes about. So I'm like horrible at that, but That's probably a key skill to be good at this MDT facilitator role. You know, on that note, talk a little bit about the type of person that you feel like really thrives in this role. What are some of the traits, skills, experience, whatnot that you kind of feel like are really important to be successful at this?
Yeah, I would say there's not one specific type of person who can be successful in this. I think, and I've seen people who have all different kinds of personalities. I've seen introverts, I've seen extroverts, I've seen people who come from mental health backgrounds, people who are in prosecution, all walks of life I have encountered in this role. The one or two things I do think that are essential are people who are able to slow down and actually check in not only with other people on their team, but themselves. So I think it takes a little bit of the capacity to look inward and say, what is it about this situation that I'm connecting to? Am I avoiding conflict and thereby setting a team up for a bigger challenge? Am I diving too much in? Like, what's my place in this? And if you can't kind of do a little bit of that self work, we call it sometimes, that's going to be a little bit more challenging. So people who can kind of do that inward look are going to be a little bit better suited, I think.
That's good. That's good. If people are listening to this and they're thinking, hey, this guy's actually really helpful, I'd like to get a little more from Greg. What would be the best way for them to do that? Where would they go kind of get more from you, more on this subject? What would be the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, the easiest place to send them is to the Southern Regional CAC website. So that's srcac.org. If you're not in the Southern region, there is a region in the Northeast, the Midwest, the Western region, and a little bit of Googling, you'll find them. But srcac.org will get you to our webpage where you can get the email address of me or any of my colleagues, and I would invite everybody to reach out. The one thing we know about this job is that you can't be a team facilitator in isolation. You need to connect to people. You need to be hearing about the resources that are available to you. And even just hearing that there are other people out there in the positions that you are having the same challenges, so you're not alone.
Yeah, I agree so much. It's been fun for me to connect with a few people who are in this role and learn about what they're doing. And just even in those few conversations I've had, it's been fun to see how each person has a little bit of a different approach to their particular team. Every team is different, and every situation is different, and that's fun to kind of learn how each person is approaching the particular role.
Yeah, it's a great point, Mike. It can't be a one-size-fits-all thing. You've got to really listen to your team, hear what they need, and create kind of almost tailored, customized supports for your team. It's got to be done individually. Every team is different.
Well, I could talk to you about this for 7 hours, but we should probably wrap up so folks can get back to their day and finish out as they head into the weekend. Greg, thanks so much for giving us a few minutes today. I really appreciate it. I've just appreciated the opportunity to get to know you a bit and speak to you about this. And we'll have the link to this available to get more from Greg. And as he said, hit up your regional CAC and if you're looking for some more training on this. So, Greg, enjoy the rest of your weekend. It was good to chat for a little bit.
Yeah, thanks. My pleasure, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to share something I'm passionate about, and wish everybody in this role the best of luck out there, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Oh, okay, talk soon.
I'm Jolene, and I am a survivor of child sexual abuse. Saying those words will never get easier. You are putting the worst thing that ever happened to you out.
Protecting the evidence like you protect the kids is really acknowledging that this is a part of the child's humanity.
And when children share the worst, they deserve the best protection. Vitanix is more than cloud storage or software. We're security for the most sacred trust you've been given.
VitaNix was built from the ground up for child advocacy centers specifically to meet the needs of those child advocacy centers, and was informed by conversations not only with individual centers across the country, but also with partners from the Department of Justice, the FBI, the National Children's Alliance, and leading philanthropists. The kind of security that we use is the same kind of security that protects the Department of Defense. So when we talk about VitaNix, we talk about being in the same company as things that protect us from nuclear armament.
Unlike DVDs and videotapes that can be damaged, hard to play back, or easily lost, or consumer-grade online storage services that are not secure, VitaNix is so much more than just storage. With VitaNix, you can simply and securely share and manage access to interviews in real time online, create a digital chain of evidence, and ensure, in a way never possible before, that forensic interviews are protected.
It's personal for us. We know the stakes are high for these child testimonies.
VitaNix helps you accelerate justice and healing with instant access and simple coordination. If that's working with team members across the office or agencies from across the country. It's easy to use and easy to learn, with the ability to collaborate, share, and even add attachments.
With VitaNix, the benefit is we can easily share an interview with a defense attorney, with a prosecutor, and they can prepare for their cases, which really has the ability to continue that access to justice for children on those cases.
It is really state-of-the-art technology that children in this field and in our work deserve. They deserve the best.
We know it isn't about putting fancy bells and whistles on something, so it's the most high-tech. It's about making it work and making it work well for the users who need it to advance the cases on behalf of these children.
This kind of technology where you are trying to preserve critical information, there are no systems like this that really make sure that this is treated like evidence and that that story is preserved and protected so that only the people that need to have access to it get access to it.
The value of protecting that moment, their voice, those memories, you can't put a price tag on that because something priceless was taken from them.
VitaNix is here to protect your work. Your calling to be there when children call out, because we protect the evidence like you protect the child.